So in addition to, I don't know, Freddy Krueger, Jason Voorhees, and Michael Myers, it would appear that Section 13, it just refuses to stay dead, doesn't it?
Yeah, and usually horror sequels are bad. I mean, in this case, the horror sequel is going to be more terrifying than the original. I mean, this is one of the rare cases where the remake is going to have much more of an impact than the first one did, because now they're out for blood. And one of the biggest problems with this is that, as you noted in your preamble there, the proposal from the Justice Committee empowers, or I'll say coerces, social media companies into being what I characterize in my writing on this as state enforcers, because you see it in, I believe it's recommendation number 9, this idea on the committee's report that social media companies must have requirements imposed by the government on how they're going to get rid of what the government says is hate speech. Now, the reason this is so relevant is because when Section 13 Part 1 was around, there was this sham of a tribunal you'd go to, and the tribunal would determine if what you posted was hateful. And that was bad enough. Now you don't even get to the tribunal part. The government is forcing social media companies to censor their users.
And, Andrew, let's talk about the way in which Section 13 worked back in the battle days pre-2013 and why the Stephen Harper Conservatives got rid of it. We know, well, at least those who follow this story know, that essentially Section 13, it was gamed by one individual, if you will, Richard Warman. Sometimes he was an employee of the human rights racket. Sometimes he was a complainant, and he brought forth well over a dozen cases in which he always won, in which he went trolling for hate speech on the internet, posing as somebody else, and himself using hateful language in order to do his fishing, if you will. And this is what I find disturbing about this. We know how inherently flawed this is, so why bring it back in the first place? What is the agenda of those who want to reinstate it?
Well, I think the agenda is very clear here. You're talking about a movement of people that fundamentally believe speech should not be free. And when you look at the witnesses that were testifying as part of this online hate study, there were 69 or 59 of them, so nearly 6 witnesses, and all but about 5 were taking an anti-free speech stance, or at the very least a stance that was a lot more focused on where the limit to free speech should be, rather than fundamentally putting the protection and preservation of free speech front and center. So that's the agenda. And trust me, you've got a lot of people that have very legitimate grievances, whether you're talking about Muslims or gays or transgender people. I don't doubt them when they say that they see mean, nasty things on the internet, and they are on the receiving end of perhaps mean and nasty and maybe emotionally hateful barbs. But something being emotionally hateful, or something that you feel is hateful, does not mean it should be illegal. And that's the fundamental divide here, is that we are criminalizing hurting feelings when we already have a mechanism in Canada called the Criminal Code that deals with speech that is sufficiently hateful to cause real harm.
That's an excerpt from the Ezra Levant Show. Every day I do a video monologue, and then I interview an interesting guest, and then I end by reading my hate mail. But you've got to subscribe to it, which you can do at therebel.media/shows.